This is the Rising Tide Startups podcast, where we chat with startup founders from all over the globe to help you escape the cubicle and begin your own startup journey. Make sure you take notes. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Podbrand Media. Let Podbrand create and host your company branded podcast. Learn more at podbrandmedia.com. This is Kevin Prewett with Rising Tide Startups. I have a great guest with me today, Nile Frater. Nile, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
So Nile and I have had almost a 10-minute chat before I hit the record button. I felt like I should have been recording then because we talked about so many interesting things. But Nile is actually from one of my favorite places on the planet, Scotland. But he's not there right now. But Nile, if you and I met at a networking event, like a business networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
Yeah, so I run Masse SEO. We have an agency where we help Series A, Series B startups grow with a focus on trying to grow them ridiculously quickly. And before that, I ran NoCode.Tech, which was probably the first major website talking about no-code and low-code technology. My background before that's a kind of odd mix of startups, corporates, and all sorts of failed entrepreneurial pursuits.
So how did you actually get into this from the beginning? I mean, nobody wakes up and just says, I'm going to do niche websites, or I'm going to do SEO, or I'm going to do whatever. So what was kind of that entry drug, so to speak, that got you into the whole family here?
Well, so as I mentioned, I've kind of been trying to do entrepreneurial things for a long time. Always a kind of side hustle next to the main job. And eventually I had this website, NoCode.Tech, that did well. And the main reason that website grew was through SEO. And when I started that website, it was a fluke. I didn't know much about SEO. I just sort of had to learn it because it was the main place that traffic was coming from. And eventually that company got acquired. I worked for the acquiring company for, I think, 18 months. And, when I left that company, I was trying to figure out what's the quickest way that I can, replace my income and start to make a little bit of money. And so, I'd already done I built SaaSes before. I built kind of educational information products. So doing the SEO agency was a little bit of a departure, and probably not the kind of sexiest business, if you want to use that word, but it just felt like the easiest thing to transfer my skills into, because I could go to prospective clients and I could say, hey, we grew this website. We sold that website because we managed to grow it so much, and so therefore we can come and do a good job for you. And it was also kind of an opportunity to, I'd worked with SEO agencies in the past, never had a good experience, and so it was a really good opportunity to try and build the SEO agency that I would want to be a customer of.
I mean, I think that makes the best startups is if that was a tagline, what would I want this service to be if I was the first client? What a way to kind of build that foundation. But talk about the whole acquisition, because we've had a number of guests on here that have said, yeah, my first thing was acquired, I sold it, or whatever. Walk us back to that day that somebody either approached you or you had, you were building you were building this for exit purposes. What was that day like when somebody expressed an interest and said, yeah, I'm going to add a 0 to this offer? And you're like, wow, somebody actually values this like I do, or maybe even more than I do. So walk us through that day, that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really slow, kind of drawn out process. I think the first time we talked, it was good timing. I'd been running the business for, I think, 3.5, maybe 4 years at that point. And I was starting to feel a bit fatigued with it. It was never the type of business that could scale particularly far. And I wasn't necessarily ready to sell, but I was definitely starting to think about my options. And so I think, if anything, it was a little bit of a relief. The relief actually very quickly then turned into energy. Suddenly I was like, oh, well, I've got interest. Maybe I could make it bigger. Maybe I could kind of aim for the stars. And so the process kind of dragged out. I mean, I think we started talking in, I'm going to say July of 2021. I think it was October 2021 before we actually had a number on the table. And that felt very, very slow. But once there was a number on the table, it happened really, really quickly. And I always remember the the weeks where their next negotiation email would come in, and I would just take an entire day to reply. That's all I would do for that day, is write a reply email. And so we negotiated back and forward. They came to meet me. I was living in Barcelona at that point. They came to meet me. We kind of talked about the future, and that was sort of it. We made a deal. I think, funnily enough, we agreed a deal on my birthday, which was like a nice little bit of timing. And then the next 4 months, we're just waiting for lawyers to ask me lots and lots of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was like a tiny content website, but I was having to fill out forms about our HR processes and all sorts of kind of silly big law firm stuff.
So, what are those? That's right. It's
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
What are those? I love it.
And you go from a funny feeling, because the day that you agree the offer and you kind of virtually shake hands, it feels just pretty amazing feeling. And then the next few months are just terror. Like, what if this falls through? And you get to an awkward point where we had new clients who kind of wanted to come on and do some work with the company, but we don't want to commit to anything because we might sell, or we might close this deal tomorrow or the next week or the next week. So yeah, it was a little bit of terror. And then at the very end, when the day the deal closed and money transferred, it was I think just relief again.
Took a long pause, and it's walked the streets of Barcelona and said, "Is this real?" Just looking at that virtual check you were receiving. But so that happened. That exit happened. You said you kind of stayed with that company, which is very, very common. For the founder to kind of stay with it in that transitional period. Did you have a set period that was part of the deal that said you got to stay for until this time, or we want you to stay till this time?
Yeah. So there was I mean, we could have stayed longer. It was kind of like part of the deal was, some kind of money, and part of it was equity, and part of it was essentially a contract to kind of do some work, do some consulting. And so the gig there was, I had a lot of knowledge about the no-code space. The company that bought me were a no-code company. And so, I did lots of things. I helped with kind of general marketing, helped with product, helped with sales at one point. But the main thing that they wanted me to do was continue growing NoCode.Tech, and try to make that a bigger and bigger brand. And it was pretty fun because, they had a VC budget before. This was just me scraping together. And so one of the things that I actually did with the VC money is I said, okay, well, let's go and get the best content agencies instead of, the kind of crappy version that I've been doing entirely.
See what you can find on Fiverr. That's right.
Yeah. And so, we went and worked with both one agency for NoCode.Tech and one agency for the acquiring company's website. And because I was kind of like helping with their content as well. And we went out and picked like the two most highly rated agencies we could find. And it wasn't a great experience. I think the company I was working for was going through some challenges at the time. And eventually they did a big layoff. I was kind of part of that. And so, I'd done this kind of content work and decided that, I didn't massively enjoy working for someone else first and foremost. That just wasn't a great fit for me. And there was potential and opportunity to have stayed on through that layoff in kind of different ways. Like, it was very political then. There was a lot of ways to play it. But I was really looking forward to coming back and kind of working for myself. And as I mentioned, right, I had this experience with these content agencies. And so I was kind of fired up to go and do a little bit of SEO. I started doing that before I finished in the main company. So I had a little bit of a soft landing. And then, kind of went and did my own thing from there.
Well, it is always interesting to hear that story and how often, people kind of stay in the company that they've sold. But it's interesting because it's generally very binary. So it's either a really good experience or it's a really bad experience. There's very little kind of middle ground, as far as staying along, because it is hard. It's hard to go from a founder to an employee, status almost again, for sure. But talk about, okay, you kind of stayed with them for a while, then you thought, okay, now you gotta actually cross that Rubicon. You got to cross the bridge that says, okay, what's next? And was Masse SEO, was that the what's next, or were there some little attempts and little ideas kind of intermingled between that? Walk us through that transition.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of other ideas. I mean, I had some fantastical ideas. When they acquired a company, I thought, I'm going to build an Airbnb empire. This was early 2022 at this point
Yeah.
when, that whole economic
Oh
situation.
gosh, yes.
And so I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be printing money with the money I've already got. It's going to be amazing. Did not work out like that. I never bought a single Airbnb. I had some kind of SaaS ideas, and I tried to run with them, but I was just too involved in the acquiring company, and kind of working there. And a real problem I have, that's always been a hassle for me, is I love doing side hustles, but I can't stop myself throwing everything I've got into my actual job. Even if it's not a job I'm hugely enthusiastic about, I just can't help myself. I want to get involved in everything. So 2022 was pretty slow as a result. Around about summer, I decided that I wanted to start a sort of SEO agency. Not a traditional one, but more of a programmatic SEO agency. Take a database of information, turn that into kind of SEO pages. That turned out to be ridiculously difficult to sell. I would do some kind of sales calls at the side, that sort of thing. But I was trying to sell SEO, and people wanted to buy engineering time. And I'm an okay coder, but I really don't enjoy it. So that wasn't what I was looking for. And then kind of coming into the middle of 2023, just a couple of months before the layoff, we met this client who, they actually asked us, they were in the robotics space, and they said, hey, what do you think about going out and scraping, say, 1,000 forum posts per month and using AI to write an article that answers, the questions that are in these forum posts? And we said, absolutely not. We said that would be really bad,
Thank
really
you,
low
but
quality
no.
content.
Right.
Yeah, we thought it'd be really, really low quality stuff. It's not a good idea. What we eventually compromised on is that we would do 30 actual articles per month. So we'd use a lot of AI, we'd use a lot of humans, and that was me, and a friend of mine at the time.
You're scraping these articles, or you're creating them?
Creating them from scratch.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Entirely from scratch. We kind of pivoted from, hey, this was going to be a programmatic thing, and then it became actually traditional
Just
content,
content
but at
creation.
extreme scale.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, again, a little bit like the acquisition. Like when I agreed that, it felt huge. Felt like a really big deal. I was excited to finally have something on the side going, and then immediately terror, because I was like, okay, I've just agreed to do 30 articles per month. How am I going to do that? But that ended up working out really, really well. Within 3 months after publishing the first article, this client just took off and continued to take off. And even literally between then and now, every single week, they are up and up and up. And that eventually turned into Masse. So it was kind of we kind of got there accidentally. And now, what we actually offer to clients, we don't quite write 30 posts anymore. We do for some clients, but we typically start on 20. But that's kind of become our unique selling point. We do ridiculous volumes of content, and it works. That's kind of what's kept us going since.
Human generated? This is AI generated and human edited. What's kind of you peel back whatever layers you want to peel back on your secret sauce, but that's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content, yeah. It started out really AI heavy. In the early days, we had a content plan. We'd figure all that out by hand, and then we'd say to the AI, "Hey, we want to write an article about, what types of robots are used in a factory." And so originally, I would take that output and maybe I'd tweak the output a little bit and edit it, and then kind of deliver it. And I think probably as quickly as within a month, we realised, first of all, this works better than we thought, but it's not good enough. And we started to kind of, and I don't even know if it was so much a conscious process at that time, but the human side of it was more and more and more and more. And then, as we started to kind of hire our first couple of writers to help scale this out, what I started to notice is actually, instead of starting with an AI article and then turning it into a human written article, what we're kind of doing now is using the AI as almost as a tool for writer's block. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to assume you don't know much about robotics, for example. And so if I ask you to go write an article about robotics, if I ask you to go and write an article about robotics, you have to figure out, okay, well, what does robotics mean? Like, what does that actually encompass? and say what are the different types of robots in the factory. Like, okay, what factories are we talking? What are the different types of robots? What are the functions? There's so much background knowledge that you have to go and get. What AI is really good at is giving you the the kind of the quick notes on it, or the cliff
Mm-hmm.
notes on it. It can quickly tell you all this baseline information, and that information is not necessarily original or useful, but it gives you enough to start an article on, and it kind of almost tells you, you know enough to know what you don't know.
Yep.
And so we were then able to kind of say, okay, great, we can spend our time doing actual original research. If there are 10 facts or 10 value points in this article, 5 of them come from AI, and they're just the things that you need to know to discuss this topic. And the other 5 are, actual original nuggets that
Mm-hmm.
humans went out and found. If I fast forward to now, it's pretty different. We use AI still for that kind of like writer's block, but most of the writing that we do doesn't really involve much AI at all, because our writers actually write at least 20 to 40 articles per month,
Mm-hmm.
and they're exclusively focused on a client. So you might know nothing about robotics today, but if you fast forward 3 months and you've written, in the robotics client's case, 90 articles,
Yep.
suddenly you are an expert. I could go on robotics podcasts and sound like I know what I'm talking about,
Yep. Yeah,
because
I can't even
you just
imagine.
write so much. Yeah,
Right.
it's crazy.
Right.
And so the effect of that is, especially when you start with a new client, you need to rely on AI more and more to just understand the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But very, very quickly, you know, quite often our writers don't even use AI, for even background research. They know what they want to talk about. They know where to look for the original information. Maybe we interview clients and get a lot of their kind of expertise that only they have in their market. And as a result, we're able to produce content really, really quickly at high volumes. And yet most of the time it's better than what clients are producing in-house.
That is it's interesting. I never really thought about just taking the time to, if you're generating that level of content, you quickly become an expert in that field because you've done so much research. And um, do you think, and this is kind of a weird little tangent here I want to chase, but do you think that AI is helpful in attribution? Like, is it like if you're looking for content, you're researching the web and you're trying to find, all the nuggets that are going to build this article or this blog article or whatever you're writing. Um, I mean, you're pulling from a number of different sources and you want to be fair. You want to attribute the original ideas to where they're supposed to be attributed and that type of thing. And maybe it is doing its own research. Maybe you're saying, hey, go out and find me 15 kind of source articles about this particular issue we're trying to talk about here, and it would say, is it sophisticated enough that it's not only going to show me the source, it's going to show me the attribution as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it depends. We have this kind of laugh internally because there are facts and then there are subjective facts. And what I mean by that is, if you want to know again the different types of robot that can exist in a factory, that's fairly black and white information. And so AI can source that pretty
Mm-hmm.
easily, and it can attribute that. And we use a tool called Perplexity, which is kind of like Google, but it's kind of somewhere between Google and a research tool. It will give you a paragraph of information the way that, say, ChatGPT would, but it will say, "Hey, I got this information from this
Mm-hmm.
source,
Yeah,
etc."
that's what I'm talking
And
about.
it'll maybe give you 5 or 10 sources. So for clients where we do a lot of really black and white articles, like these are the facts, this is how it works. Maybe it's finance, hardware, that type of thing. AI is really good at that. Where it's not so good are subjective facts, as we
Mm-hmm.
call them. So let's say we are doing a roundup on what are the top 10 tools for recording a podcast. If you ask an AI that, it will try to give you a factual answer, but there's not a factual answer to that.
Right. It is very subjective. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Exactly. So those articles are the hardest to do in any sort of way with
Mm-hmm.
AI. AI can maybe help you figure out, like, okay, maybe I'm doing an article on the top 10 like computer monitors. Like, what are the factors I should compare them on, or what are some emerging technologies I should know about that I might not find if I don't know what I'm looking for. Really good for that. It
Yep.
will show you sources, etc. But yeah, when it comes down to telling a consumer what they should buy, we have to do that entirely manually, and we get a great result because of that.
It is, I mean, it is such a volatile, and I just mean volatile, not in a negative sense, but volatile because it's just a constantly changing environment. I mean, by the time we're at Chat GPT 15, I mean, who knows where we're going to be at, at
It's
that
scary.
level for sure. It is scary. It is scary. Give me a tagline. If you had a tagline for your company, what would it be?
We do have one. It is we turn startups into scale ups. The reason we say that is because we work best with startups who have figured out what they're selling, and who they're selling it to, and now they just have to go and find more of those people. We're really good at scaling that up. And we work with the occasional client who isn't 100% sure where they're going after, and they have to kind of experiment with it. But the thing that we are best at doing is taking a startup that has this little core and helping it grow really, really big. And the thing that we're starting to see is some of our older clients who have been with us, for around about a year, which is not not very long, but they're Series A clients. They're starting to raise Series Bs, and we can show the real impact we've had in that. And so we didn't know that was going to happen when we came up with that slogan, but it's kind of come true. We are really helping turn startups into scale ups.
And I mean, what a advertising, it's more than a tagline. I mean, it's almost social proof. It's like, we can show you what we've done with companies that you could almost mirror. You could compare yourself to, you can visualize yourself at that stage, that they were at a year ago or 18 months ago, and just where they are today based on our service. So that I love it. It's one of the most clear descriptions that we probably ever had on the podcast here. But hey man, we're gonna play Dragon's Den here for just a second, and it's like elevator pitch and Dragon's Den kind of meet together, which is, for our Yank listeners, this is the UK equivalent to Shark Tank. So we're going to give me 30 seconds. Give me the elevator pitch. If I'm a startup founder, I'm wanting to scale up. Give me we're in the lift going up about 5 floors. So take it away.
The main thing that we always say is everybody knows that, or everybody thinks that SEO takes between 8 and 9 months. It's going to take a long time. Everyone knows ads are fast, SEO is slow. The thing that we really pride ourselves on is we say that's not actually true. We say that is because the typical agency is publishing 4, maybe 6 articles every month. We're publishing minimum 20 every month. And so that just means everything's happening faster. We've got more opportunities to rank. We've got more opportunities to bring you customers. And actually, we can start to be experimental, which is something people don't talk about in SEO. They talk about experiment with ad copy and ad visuals and so on and so forth. We can do that with SEO. Because we're publishing so much, we can try that industry you're not sure about. We can try pitching this customer in a different way. We can try just writing to them or writing to a different audience in a certain way. And so as a result, the thing that we usually say to our clients is, we can make this happen fast. We can generally lay out exactly what the first 4 months are going to look like, almost week by week. And it's all kind of taken care of for you. One of the things that I really hated when I was kind of going out to content agencies is they would kind of say like, hey, what keywords do you want to go after this week? Or, how many words do you want us to write about that? We don't really like that. The best situation for us is actually like, you turn up in month 1, you say, let's go ahead. And we check in with you every single week. We're always reporting, but hands off, let us do it. Look again at the results in 3 or 4 months, and you'll be happy that you didn't sit and stress about every week. Well, what should I ask the SEO agency to do? What should the keywords be? And so that's essential approach. We try to take all of the SEO truths that people think they know and turn them on their head, because most of them are not true.
Ding! There goes the lift doors opening. Hey, I'm reaching for your business card right now because we need to do business. But what does the company look like today? And year and a half in or so, and what do you project that it's going to look like in, say, 18 to 24 months?
Yeah. So today we are 16 people. I always have to count that up in my head, we're about 16 people. At the start of the year, we only had 4 clients, and we had me and maybe 3, 4 other people. So we've grown really, really rapidly this year. And we've had to kind of, like, there's been ups and downs there. The last couple of months, we haven't done a lot of sales. We've just been focusing on, we'll maybe accept 1 or 2, but only really, really tight fits. Other than that, we've been trying to just rebuild a company, build our processes to
Mm-hmm.
go kind of further and further. Um, and we actually set out to kind of be a boutique company. At the start of this year, I thought, hey, we're going to get to 10 clients. Life's going to be perfect. Every client's going to be happy. It's all going to be amazing. We're done. That happened really, really quickly, well within the first half of the year, and so we've started to set our sights on where to go next. And I think our plan is we want to really 10x the company.
Mm-hmm.
We want to try and go from being a boutique agency to being something really, really big. And there's definitely like a lot of I have a lot of concerns about how to do that and how to maintain what we're doing. But I think a big realization is I thought I was picked this number 10 because I thought when you get there, that's about the number of people you can handle before it's just too much for one person and you have to
Yeah,
start
that's wise.
introducing layers.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has this agency experience where the founder who knows their stuff inside out, they sell you. And then you come in and actually it's, an intern or it's someone fresh at university who doesn't know anything about SEO or ads or whatever it might be. And they're just running through a playbook. And that's what we really have always wanted to avoid. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the big thing that we've realized is even at 10 clients, everything has to be systemized. Like I am the CEO in this business, and so we have to systemize everything. We have to make sure that we have super in-depth processes for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to do that, if you're going to systemize things to the point where I could step away from the business, say get hit by a bus and be in a coma for 6 months, we may as well use those processes to scale up and get bigger.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a realization that the bigger that we get, we actually can afford to do more for our clients. We
Mm-hmm.
can start doing programmatic SEO on top of content. We've started doing Webflow design type stuff for our clients. And so we might not feel this way forever. We might get to 20, 30, 40 and say, no, this is enough. But at the moment, we really want to go big with this company and see what we can achieve.
That is amazing in such a short period of time. But I mean, what's interesting is you stepped into the role knowing what you needed as a startup founder, knowing what you have seen that, some of these, high dollar agencies that were not delivering on, the kind of the promise there. And you thought, hey, we can do this better. We can actually do this better. And if we do it better, it will resonate, with clients and we'll get referrals and, that we'll grow with them as they scale as well. But I love just the whole story, behind Masse SEO, and it's going to be so fun to watch, its growth and progression over the next year or two. But if you go back and you think about, being a startup founder, and this is, serial founder almost, I think by definition, but it's sometimes it's very lonely. Being a founder is lonely. And in a variety of reasons, a variety of ways. So when you look at, do you have like an inner circle, like these are the people that it's the sanctum sanctorum, it's the inner circle of that, concentric circles that's I'm trusted. I can share things with them. I can commiserate with them. We can cry on each other's shoulders. We can kick each other in the butt when we need to get kicked in the butt type thing. So do you have that around you?
Yeah, I think in kind of a few different ways. So I have a partner in the business who we have a lot of those kind of deeper conversations, and I think that's where I take a lot of the struggles to. Um, I also have, for example, my girlfriend is someone I talk to a lot about what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. And she's usually very good at telling me if I'm being too soft on something or too harsh on something.
Love it.
She's good at that. My family are all quite kind of interested in business and quite
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial as well. And so, we can bounce a lot of discussions there. And then when it comes to tactics and how should I approach
Mm-hmm.
this, I have a few like communities that I'm part of, kind of entrepreneurship communities and that sort of thing. And most recently, I've started working with a sort of, I don't know if coach is the right word, like a business kind of consultant
Yeah.
company. And I think the interesting thing there is, I wouldn't say I'm learning a huge amount of stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's eye opening. I hadn't thought of that. But what they're really good at is kind of focusing you, and it's a little bit like a personal trainer. Like I know that I shouldn't be eating donuts, but I'm going to do it. But if I have to explain to my personal trainer in the morning, oh, I had a donut last night, I'm not going to do it. And it's a little bit
It's
like that.
accountability.
Exactly. It's a little bit of external accountability, which is, I come from a corporate background where consultants will just look at your watch and tell you the time. So I've always been a little bit skeptical of it, but I think where we are now and we're growing and I'm starting to face a lot of kind of new challenges, it's really handy having somebody kind of who's not family, who doesn't have an inherent bias in your favor. That's pretty useful.
And now here's a quick word from one of our new sponsors on Rising Tide Startups.
At Navicus, we know you spend far too much time on administrative tasks. Let us take those off your plate so you can focus on the highest value activities in your business. We have highly trained, highly vetted specialists ready to take on those administrative responsibilities at an affordable and effective rate. Check us out at navicus.com, proud sponsor of Rising Tide Startups podcast. Well, man, as we wrap up today, I want you to leave our audience with either a golden nugget of advice that you would give them, or maybe just a funny story. It's completely up to you. You get to pick which one, but I'd love to wrap up, and then I want you to tell people where the best place is to contact you and find you online and learn more.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if this is advice or a motivational quote or what it is, but the thing that I always try to keep in mind is like you only have to be lucky once, And what I mean by that is I would call the business I have now fairly successful. We have a long way to go and it could all crumble down tomorrow. But it's probably the 10th or 15th or something business that I've founded. And NoCode.Tech had a really good exit, but it also wasn't a super successful business. This one to me is a better business. And I think the thing that I've kind of learned is you can just keep trying this, right? People are so risk averse at this. They often think with their business, you get one big shot, and if it doesn't work, you've got to go back to the corporate life, and everyone's going to laugh at you. It's really not like that. You can, especially with the internet, right? It's not like you're not building a factory anymore. You can keep building businesses, try a new one every single year. If you're 30, you can probably do it for another 30, probably 40 years. You might not want to when you're 70, but you can just keep going and going and going. And that always kind of makes me feel pretty good. Like, if I ever feel like I have a bad week in business, all my clients are going to leave me, everyone hates me, I'm just like, well, I'll just start another one. Worst case, my life won't change that much. I'll just go do a different business and take another shot because I only have to be lucky once. I don't know if that's advice or a motivational quote, something that's going to be like a background on someone's Instagram. But yeah, that's my take.
I love it. I mean, it's like American baseball vernacular. It says, hey, if you get a hit 1 out of 3 times, you're a multimillionaire. It is just exactly crazy how that works. But yeah, tell us where we can learn more about Masse SEO.
Yeah, sure. So our website is masse.marketing. That's mass spelled with an E, as in mass. So you can find that at masse.marketing. We're also on LinkedIn with the same name. And you can reach me at nile@masse-seo.com.
Man, this has been a pleasure to chat. Just listening to you speak just takes me back a few years back to good times. That I remember those times in Western Europe. But Nile, thanks again for just taking time to share your story and just to kind of open the pull back the curtain to let us see behind your journey plus the journey of your company that you're trying to build. And we are excited to see where this is going to head in the near future. But thank you again for just really playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Nile, have a great week, buddy.
You too. Thank you very much. See you later.
I hope you heard some great takeaways from our guests today. Make sure you reach out to them, and thank you again for playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide.